Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive might sound a little bit scary. At first, we're talking about performance management.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but don't worry, we're not talking about those horrible yearly reviews we've all come to dread.
Right.
We're going to explore how performance management can actually be a company's secret weapon.
Especially in times of crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
And for today's deep dive, we're looking at some research from Business Research Quarterly.
Too fancy.
It really changes how we think about performance management.
Awesome.
So, think back to the beginning of 2020,
Yikes.
the start of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, definitely not a fun time.
The global economy just went crazy.
Like, how bad are we talking?
Well, the U.S. economy plunged 35%,
Oh, wow.
and the Eurozone wasn't much better. They dropped 12.1%.
Those are some scary numbers.
And it wasn't just about, the overall economy. It really impacted people.
It's easy to forget about the human side of things when you're just looking at percentages.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the hiring freezes and layoffs.
And how many salaries and bonuses were just gone.
Not to mention the huge shift to remote work.
Which, for a lot of people, meant way more stress and burnout.
It was a recipe for disaster.
For sure. For sure.
One of the things that really gets me is thinking about all the people who lost their jobs in, leisure and hospitality.
Yeah, like hotels and restaurants and things.
Yeah, just in the U.S., over 7.7 million jobs disappeared.
That's just wild.
And even before all that, even before the pandemic.
It's going to be bad, isn't it?
66%.
66% of what?
Of remote tech workers.
Okay.
Already felt burned out.
So clearly something wasn't working even before we all got locked down.
And this is where I think we really need to ask ourselves, what is performance management even for?
Yeah, because a lot of companies, they just think about it as that once-a-year performance review.
Right. Like you're judged, and then that's it.
But real performance management, it's so much more than that.
It's about ongoing conversation.
Toward development,
Ethical leadership.
It sounds like the pandemic kind of exposed just how messed up a lot of companies' performance systems actually were.
Totally.
Like they just got rid of performance reviews entirely.
If they could abandon them that easily, it makes you wonder if they were ever really that useful to begin with.
So what can we do? How can we make performance management, actually work?
Well, this research gives us 5 really useful ways that companies can not only survive, but thrive.
Even in a crisis?
Yeah.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first one is about measuring results.
Okay.
In addition to behaviors.
So not just how people are doing things, but what they're actually getting done.
Exactly.
That's got to be super important for remote work.
It is. When you can't always see what people are doing, you really need to focus on those tangible outcomes.
Right. What's number 2?
Number 2 is measuring adaptive performance.
Adaptive performance. I'm not sure I've heard that one before.
It's basically how well employees can deal with change, learn new things, and, navigate tricky situations, like handling emergencies. Right.
Dealing with stress.
Being able to think on their feet.
Exactly. That's all part of adaptive performance.
And this ties back to that 66% of tech workers who were already burned out, right?
Absolutely. If we focus on building up our employees' adaptive performance,
it can help make them more resilient,
less likely to burn out, and more able to deal with whatever comes their way.
Makes sense.
Okay, recommendation number 3.
Hit me with it.
Conduct stay interviews.
Stay interviews to retain top performers.
Exactly.
Now, why is that so important now, post-pandemic?
Well, the pandemic really shifted the balance of power in a lot of workplaces.
How so?
Companies suddenly realized just how much they relied on their top performers.
Like they were essential for survival.
And for future growth.
So these stay interviews, they help companies figure out
what motivates these high achievers.
What they want to achieve in their careers.
And what kind of support they need to thrive.
It's all about creating an environment where your best people actually want to stay. Yeah, when you understand what makes your top performers tick, you can meet their needs and build a culture of engagement and loyalty.
Awesome. What's next?
All right, number 4 is implementing a multi-source performance management system.
So we're not just getting feedback from the manager.
Nope, this means getting feedback from peers, colleagues, direct reports, even clients or vendors.
It's like a 360-degree view.
Exactly.
And that's got to be even more important with remote work, right?
You're not seeing people face-to-face as often, so getting a broader perspective is crucial.
And this can help with those, difficult conversations that are even harder to have online.
For sure.
Plus, it's not just about evaluation. It's about helping people grow.
Right. When you get feedback from different sources, you can see things you might have missed and really focus on your development.
Okay, last but not least, what's number 5?
Number 5 is collecting and using performance promoter scores.
Performance promoter scores, what are those?
It's a really simple but effective system. It's actually based on the Net Promoter Score that's used in marketing.
Oh, interesting.
Basically, you just ask people how likely they are to recommend working with a certain person or team or even the whole company.
Huh, that does sound pretty simple.
But here's the key. You also ask them why they gave that score.
Oh, so you're not just getting a number, you're getting the context behind it.
Exactly. You learn what's working, what's not, and what you can do to improve.
And this can be used for individuals and teams, right?
Yep, it gives you a really good overall view of performance across the board.
So it's like taking the temperature of the whole organization.
I like that analogy. You can see where things are going well and where there might be some issues.
And that kind of information is super valuable in a crisis when you need to act fast.
It really is. And because it's so easy to use,
And quick.
yeah, it's perfect for those crisis situations where you need information fast.
You can get a snapshot of how things are going and make changes right away.
Exactly.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We ha-
So what's the big takeaway? What have we learned?
Well, I think the pandemic really showed us how broken a lot of performance management systems were.
Like, they weren't really doing what they were supposed to do.
Right. And when companies had to abandon them so quickly, it kind of proves they weren't adding much value.
It was a wake-up call for sure.
We need to rethink performance management.
You need something more flexible, something that actually makes a difference.
Something more human.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think?
About
For those listening who might be thinking, okay, all this sounds great, but my company's still stuck in the dark ages, what can I do?
Yeah, it's easy to feel helpless when you're just one person.
But the good news is you don't have to wait for your company to catch up.
You can start implementing these ideas yourself
In your own work,
right now,
even if your company isn't doing stay interviews,
or using PPS.
you can still take control of your own performance and development.
Oh,
Start by talking to your manager about your goals,
your challenges.
the kind of support you need to succeed.
You can ask for feedback from your colleagues.
Even start tracking your own progress using something like PPS.
That's a great idea. You can show your manager you're serious about improving.
And who knows, maybe you'll even inspire them to rethink the whole system.
That would be awesome.
Imagine a performance management system that actually helps people grow and thrive.
Instead of making everyone miserable,
It's possible.
this has been such an insightful conversation.
It really has.
We've learned so much about how the pandemic changed the way we think about performance management.
And how we can create a more human-centered approach.
For anyone who wants to learn more about the research we discussed today,
You can find the full article, Talent Management Challenges During COVID-19 and Beyond, Performance Management to the Rescue.
in the Business Research Quarterly.
It's a really fascinating read.
And even if you don't have time to read the whole thing,
We hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought.
what if, instead of dreading performance management,
We saw it as a way to connect with our colleagues,
to help each other grow?
to build stronger, more resilient teams.
It's a powerful idea,
It really is.
and that's something for everyone listening to think about.
How can you make performance management a force for good in your own work?
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
It's a whole new way of looking at things.
I know, right? Instead of this scary impersonal process,
Yeah.
it could be a way to actually connect with people,
To understand them better.
help them grow, reach their full potential,
It's about taking all that negative energy
to dread
and turning it into something positive.
something that benefits everyone.
And just think about what that could do for company culture.
Morale, innovation,
When performance management is done right, it really does become a tool for growth.
for everyone.
This has been a really interesting deep dive.
It has. We've only just scratched the surface, though.
There's so much more to explore here.
I know, right?
For everyone listening, I'd love for you to think about your own experiences with performance management.
Both as an employee and as a manager.
What's working for you? What isn't?
And how can we all work together to create a system that actually works?
For everyone.
That's a great point. Let's take this conversation beyond the podcast.
Let's make some real changes.
Thanks so much for joining us today,
It's been a pleasure.
and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.